What's up, guys, and welcome back to Technique of the Week right here on Deco-Crete TV. My name's Jeff, and on today's episode, we're gonna give you guys a couple tips for hand swirling concrete, so stay tuned and you're gonna learn all about it. So when it comes to hand swirl concrete, man, I gotta tell you that this is kind of becoming a lost art. This is something you don't see a ton of this anymore. And a lot of guys don't even want to do this. But I will say that, it does create a cool look on the surface. A lot of homeowners actually prefer this as opposed to broom concrete. And there's also some functional things that can help you out here. I mean, today's job is a fairly large pool deck. It was done in multiple pours. It's also got a stamped border on the edge, and it would be really, really hard to get all this broomed perfectly with these borders, going around all these radiuses and, trying to get back into different corners and stuff. So it is a nice option because you can come through and you can do all this by hand. You don't have to worry about those radiuses. Swirling is also can be helpful if you're confined into tight spaces. You need to create some kind of concrete that's got some good slip resistance to it. Sometimes when you're pinched into certain places, a broom just isn't feasible, and man, hand swirling is just a great option for that. So the first thing when it comes to hand swirl concrete is just make sure you get on it in time. This is one of those things that if you miss your opportunity, it's just not going to work. I mean, even just this area that we're doing here today, you can see that there's actually 3 guys out here to get this thing swirled. So instead of like on broom concrete where you just pull a bull float across it the second time, in this case, we're just gonna float it the first time. And then once it's ready, we're gonna get out it on knee boards, and it's all gonna be done with hand floats. And again, if you start too late on this, it might be working just perfect in the beginning, but by the time you get to the end, man, you're just barely even making a mark. So to be consistent on this, just give yourself time, make sure you get on it early enough and have enough people working on it. Now, if this is one of those areas where you got a few different guys out there swirling, it is a good idea to have those guys rotate every now and then. I was just talking to Quentin and Larry here a second ago, and you guys all remember Wall Line Larry from the famous wheelbarrow video. If not, check it out right here.
Just say that again.
Hey, what the hell's going on here, Jason? All this work we do, all this supplies we buy off you, we can't get 12 donuts out here, 12 pack of beer or something? What the hell's going on?
They say that, their pattern is somewhat similar, so they feel pretty comfortable even taking a whole section by themselves. But in a lot of cases, just rotate your finishers around. That way you don't develop distinct different patterns. So the whole key to this is, again, this is done with that hand float, and you're just gonna rub it up just like you were rubbing up any concrete. But then instead of actually tipping your float a little bit and trying to create a smooth finish, all they're gonna do is they're gonna keep their float really, really flat, and it's gonna actually create a little bit of suction to that cream that's on the surface. And then as they drag it, you can see it's just making these swirl marks. So when it comes to the shape of the swirls, I mean, this is where there's some options. Now you can see Larry is making a nice round shape here, and to me, that looks really good. And we were just talking that, if it is a nice straight slab, you can actually make these things look very symmetrical as you just lay out your first row, and then you always just hit your center on the next row, and that you can make them work out really nice. Now, in today's case, this thing has got there's not a single straight thing on this job. It is all radius, and the homeowner requested a more random sort of swirl so that you can't pick up any straight lines. So this is one of those things, you can use your preference on it. The big thing is once it's done, it's done. So just make sure you put some practice into this and know what you're doing before you even start. So if you do get on this a little bit early, again, it's gonna be a little bit wetter in the beginning, and you know that even when you get to the end, even if you hit your timing perfectly, there is gonna be a little bit of a difference in that surface there. So in the beginning, it's important to just, keep light pressure on your float. Sometimes you almost have to lift up on your float a little bit in the beginning just so that, you don't create too rough of a swirl. Once you get about halfway through, you're gonna have about normal pressure. At the end, you might actually be pushing pretty hard with your float to get a good mark in there. But no matter what, you're always gonna keep that thing pretty flat. Once you start tipping it, that swirl mark is not gonna happen. Now, another thing that you're gonna wanna make sure you have on hand for a hand swirl job is always have some slab saver or some sort of finishing aid available. This stuff gets to a point where we need a little bit of moisture. It's getting a little bit hard on us. We have got to have something that's gonna work this stuff up. Well, guys, that's pretty much it for this week's show. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to tune into this video, as well as all the rest of the videos on our YouTube channel, our Facebook page. Man, that means the world to us. This job is completely swirled out. It is good to go. It's gonna sit here for a week or two. It's gonna get some sealer on it, and this pole is gonna be ready for the 4th of July.